Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the City of Farmers Branch regular City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. The time is 6 p.m. As always, we will begin with our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Lynn.
Thank you. Would you all join me? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for allowing us to come together as a community this evening. Give us strength as we work to serve all of our community and be responsible in our decision making. Be ever mindful of those who serve us on a daily basis, our police and firefighters, first responders. Keep them safe. May our efforts to serve you be an example to others that we are working not to serve ourselves, but for a greater good. In your name, we ask your blessing. Amen. And join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Next up is our ceremonial items. E1 is recognizing Police Officer Rory Babineau, Right Choice Heating and Air, and Metro North Plumbing for excellence in service to the community. On July 8th, the police department received a welfare concern from a neighbor of an 80-year-old female Farmers Branch resident. They were concerned that the lady's health, safety, and living condition, or concerned about the lady's health, safety, and living conditions. Officer Rory Babineau was dispatched to the call and found that, although the lady was healthy, her air conditioner was not working, and neither was the toilet. He further learned that she did not have the means nor the financial support to get the issues addressed. Instead of just referring her to someone, Officer Babineau took it upon himself to contact a couple of local businesses to see if they could help. Daniel Elad with Right Choice Heating and Air, and Frank Magis with Metro North Plumbing answered the call in a big way. Mr. Elad's crew determined that the air conditioner's compressor was out, but it was under warranty. They installed a new compressor and waived all labor costs. And Mr. Magis diagnosed the issue with the toilet and fixed it, also at no cost. The attention that Officer Babineau showed in an effort to improve the circumstances and dignity of one person speaks volumes for the compassion, concern, and dedication to service from this 16-year veteran officer. Furthermore, Mr. Elad's and Mr. Mage's willingness to help someone in need is a testament to their charitable hearts and involvement in the community. And so, first and foremost, Officer Babineau, and you got to come up here, man, and just hang out in the back. He's always been modest, but as the chief has always said, you don't choose this profession. This profession chooses you. You have to have a servant's heart, and Officer Babineau definitely has that, and showing the compassion and care and kind of just getting out there and saying, hey, we can fix this situation. He took it upon himself to make sure that this individual that needed help was able to find it, and we're so thankful that we have such wonderful community partners that put that commitment of helping a community, helping people in need at the highest level of importance. And so we just want to thank you for that, because this is just a wonderful story, and it's a great way to show that our officers just aren't on the street to arrest people. They come in, they do welfare checks, they help out. It's more than just the bad stuff you see on TV. They're wonderful stories, and we have amazing men and women that wear the blue in the city, and we're so thankful to have them, all of them, and thankful for you, Officer Babineau. So thank you.
Rory, you bring great honor to our profession, to our police department. You go out and you serve every day, and there's no way for us to instill in a human being the service heart that you have. You brought that with you. I want to thank you for honoring the badge, making our organization the type of agency that anybody would be proud of and proud to serve with you. Thank you for all that you do on a daily basis to serve this community. And I'd like to present you with a Police Chief's Award. Officer Rory Babineau presented in recognition of excellence in service to the community. Congratulations. Next, I'd like to call up Frank Magis from Metro North Plumbing. As you heard the mayor, whenever Rory said, okay, how can we help this lady out, you answered the call. Thank you for all of your compassionate service to this community. It means a great deal, and the fact that you're a huge resource for Rory to call whenever we got an issue. So greatly appreciated. Again, it's people like you in the community that make Farmers Branch such a great place to live. So thank you. And also a Police Chief's Award for Metro North Plumbing, Frank Magis, in recognition of excellent service to the community.
I want to thank you, Police Chief. We at Metro North Plumbing are glad to help those that need it. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the Farmers Branch Police Chief for his leadership to allow officers the ability to protect and serve. Officer Babishaw was serving our unique community by calling Metro North Plumbing to help anyone. Everyone has heard the saying, it takes a village. This is proof that our police provide a village in a park.
And now I'd like to call up Kobe Adato of Right Choice Heating and Air, who also answered the call on that day. Kobe, thank you so much for being a resource in our community that we can count on to help us and to go out and just to serve with such a kind heart. It is greatly appreciated. And again, it's folks like you and businesses in our community that are caring and care about the folks who live here that make it a great place to live. So thank you so much. And I want to present you with the Police Chief's Award, Right Choice Heating and Air, in recognition of excellence in service to the community. Thank you.
Just want to thank the chief, mayor, the council, and everybody for having me here on this evening. When you go out and do your job, you're not looking for any pat on the back or anything like that. You're just going out there and just trying to help somebody out. That's why I chose to put on the uniform 16 years ago. That's why I chose Farmers Branch. One of my things in the interview when I came here, I said I want to make a difference. And this is just one of the many things and accomplishments that I've had along my 16-year career. I can't thank enough for Metro North Plumbing, the Right Choice Heating and Air. It was just a couple phone calls. You know, the worst thing you can do is not ask and somebody say no. Just made a couple of calls, and they were right there for me and helped out the elderly lady that day, and it was beyond words. It was truly amazing. I just really appreciate everybody, and they've even come and helped out at some of our events we just recently had too. So it's been a blessing, and I just appreciate everybody, and just glad I was able to help out somebody. Thank you.
So next is E2, presenting the Metro Crest Services coveted Golden Roll Award. Mr. Land? In 2020, the Metro Crest Services Food Pantry provided 25,638 area residents with food and hygiene supplies, toilet paper, is one of the most expensive and least donated items, especially after the pandemic. To help bridge the gap, MetroCrest Services announced a regional toilet paper drive. The Farmers Branch Rotary Club answered the call with the pledge of collecting 2,000 rolls. To assist in this endeavor, the Farmers Branch Rotary Club partnered with Cedar Creek Brewhouse and Eatery. They're here. Where are you at? There's Lance. For a celebrity fundraiser on Monday, July 26th. There were 4 competing teams: the Farmers Branch Fire Department, the Farmers Branch Police Department, Farmers Branch Rotary Club, and the Farmers Branch City Council. So I think we have some representatives from MetroCrest Services as well. Or they want to come up as well? There's Nicole. Come on. It's a team effort. I'm gonna give you your time. I think you've earned it.
Before we announce the results, there are a few individuals that I wanted to thank. First of all, our team captains, Mayor Robert Dye, our fire chief, Gabe Vargas, our police chief, David Hale, and the president of the Farmers Branch Rotary Clubs, Stephanie Jimenez. How about a quick round of applause for our teams? Also to our host location, Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek turned their restaurant over to our group. They allowed us to bring amateurs in and serve their customers all night. Their staff worked all night as volunteers. All the tips went back towards the cause. So I'd like to thank managing partner Lance Bodwell there in the back for your hospitality. And to Master Plan, represented this evening by Nicole Ketchum and Andrew Rugg, who as a company donated 2,000 rolls of toilet paper, ensuring the campaign goal was met. Nicole, I think you had a few comments that you wanted to say.
Yes. Many of you know us from our work. Many of you know Master Plan from our work doing zoning cases, permitting, things like that. But at our core, we're really passionate about building really great communities. And so this event was very reminiscent of a quote from Fred Rogers, where he said, "In times of need, look for the helpers." And we were completely blown away by what a strong and beautiful community you have here in Farmers Branch, and it was such a privilege to be part of this group and the success that we saw there. So thank you to everybody who played a part in this event. Truly tremendous.
And then lastly, to MetroCrest Services, who continues to impact the lives of families and seniors by providing programs that provide self-sufficiency and independence for the greater Farmers Branch region. We have their Chief Operating Officer, Nicole Binkley, who is going to is going to announce our results.
Lance, I feel like you should come up here and give this trophy out with me. I feel like this is kind of our trophy since it was your location. But as Mayor Dye originally said, the goal for the evening was to raise 2,000 rolls of toilet paper through the celebrity waiters. There were 4 teams comprised of 5 people, so originally the goal was 500 rolls per team or 100 per person. And what I'm really excited to announce tonight is that not only did they well overexceed that goal, they really just blew it away and raised over 16,000 rolls of toilet paper. 16,833 to be exact, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you to all the teams. And then the coveted toilet paper trophy, which was donated from Custom Awards and Trophies, which really is a gold roll of toilet paper. So it's very exciting to give this out. And the total for the teams, City Council came in at 3,350 rolls. The Fire Department, 3,543. Police Department, 4,220. And the winner of the first annual, because we are going to make this an annual event now, is the Farmers Branch Rotary to win the toilet paper champion with 5,720 rolls of toilet paper.
Our sincere pleasure. We have with us Victoria Mendoza and Richard Flynn representing Rotary. So thank you all for your support. And I would be remiss if there wasn't one other individual that I mentioned. So earlier I mentioned that Cedar Creek staff basically worked that night for free. Their staff came in, they understood all the tips are going to cheer tonight, they were all there. They worked the whole night from 4 to 10:30, and they did it with a servant's heart. And speaking of a servant's heart, we had an individual that night that realized the staff was working for free and wrote a check to cover all the staff salaries that night. And that's our mayor, Robert Dye. So that's a really So we're gonna go get our picture made, is that right? Get a picture? Okay.
Next is our report on study session items, which will be led by Councilmember Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor. This afternoon at 4:30, we had our study session, and regarding item A1, which was to discuss regular agenda items, Councilman Merritt had questions about a number of items. I1, for example, he noted that there was a omission of a word in that particular item. I2, there was questions as to the scope of work and wanted clarification of the dates for the lights for Christmas and other general comments. I3, Councilman Merritt wanted to know what the status was of risk and resilience as related to the work on that project, and that is still in the works. There were questions about if Dallas Water Utilities is responsible for any assistance on that, and this project is all on Farmers Branch, so it's our own project. And I believe the project is required to be completed by December 30th. Regarding J1, which is the outdoor eating and seating, Councilman Merritt wanted to make sure that planning and zoning approved the zero setbacks, which they did. And lastly, on J2, Allison was going to provide some explanation to Councilman Merritt on that particular item. Councilwoman Williams wanted to verify on I2, wanted to verify the rental fee cost on that particular item for Christmas lights, and that was discussed. Councilwoman Rentana had a question about K2 regarding who to select for the Arts and Culture Committee as the new alternate. And then that was it for all of A1. A2, which was to discuss future agenda items. I'm the only one who had items to bring up. So the first one I brought up was to have a future discussion on boats, campers, and RVs. The second is to reevaluate our demo rebuild incentives. And the third one was a question I asked regarding chemical spraying at some of the older apartment complexes in the city. And with that, Mayor, that is all that was discussed during this study session.
Councilmember Lynn, thank you very much. Next is the city manager's report on items of community interest. Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mayor. Mosquito season is now in full force, and West Nile virus has been detected in several Farmers Branch neighborhoods. The city has begun periodic spraying to mitigate the mosquito population in those specific areas. Please do your part. Drain standing water and wear repellent when outside at dawn and dusk. The COVID infection rate is climbing again in Dallas County. With school beginning next week, public health officials want to remind everyone 12 and over to get vaccinated. Also, please seek medical attention if you or your family member have symptoms of the illness. For more details, please go to dallascounty.org/COVID-19. The Branch Connection will host the next Branch Bazaar from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, August the 28th in the ballroom. Find unique gifts, home decor, antiques, collectibles, and specialty items. Enjoy the Frog Pond for the last few days of summer. Beginning Tuesday, August the 10th, it will be open on weekends from noon to 6 p.m. The final splash of the season will be Monday, September the 6th. Come to the Grove on August the 14th for Country Music Night at our Didn't Drive Live concert series. The evening will include a Willie and Waylon tribute at 7 p.m. and a tribute to George Strait at 8:30 p.m. As always, admission is free. Matilda the Musical will be performed on the main stage of the Firehouse Theater through August the 8th. It's a captivating, whimsical story about the anarchy of childhood and the power of imagination. Find tickets at thefirehousetheater.com. We'd also like to recognize Emily Derrick, behind me, for completing her internship in the City Secretary's office. Emily is a senior at Newman Smith and a member of our Youth Advisory Council. She wants to obtain her MPA and one day be a city manager. Emily, congratulations, and please be careful about what you ask for. And finally, you can sign up for e-news at farmersbranchtx.gov to have current city news and information delivered directly to your email inbox. And with that, that's the city manager's report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Next is citizen comments. There's a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. No disparaging or inflammatory remarks directed at any member of the city council or staff will be allowed. Tonight we have one person signed up to speak, Mr. James Lockridge. Just name and address, please.
James Lockridge.
Right there.
James Lockridge, 2053 Willowwood Drive, Grapevine, Texas. I'm back again this city council meeting, and I'm going to come to every single city council meeting until somebody understands how much money Farmers Branch cost me. I asked y'all the last city council meeting to sit down with me at a table, go over the code for farmers and their crops. Instead, y'all decided to go out and write numerous citations to me for high grass and weeds. My crops are not high grass and weeds. Now, if I have to get the state to come up here and put y'all where y'all need to be, I will. If I have to get an attorney, I will. It's costing me money every week, okay? I got 6 citations in the mail this week alone. Not only did I do that, but I talked to one of your code compliance officers. Barry was his name. And he told me that he was instructed by Leo, head of code compliance, to go out to my crops and start writing tickets immediately for anything over 8 inches. Enough is finally enough. Either do something or force me to do something. I will hire every attorney I have to. I will call every news media. But guys, I am $256,000 lost because of the city of Farmers Branch. I gave you a bill, a small bill. And Farmers Branch told me that they were going to throw it in the trash because they can't pay outside contractors. I'm not a contractor. I don't want to be a contractor. The city of Farmers Branch costs me money every time you mow a crop. Now, I get that you want your tax money, but I don't care. I'm a farmer. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. So please come to the table or force me to take action in other ways that I can. I called the mayor, I called the city manager, I called the attorney, I called city council people numerous times. Only one person will call me back to tell me the code is the code, the law is the law, and we're not allowing farming in the city, okay? That's not an answer. You need to read what the state of Texas says about agricultural property and agricultural laws. I over-exceed your city ordinance. Not only did I find that out, I'm grandfathered in. I've been here long before your code was ever passed for high grass and weeds. Therefore, I don't have to abide by it. So today, I'm very simply asking, either fix it, come to the table, or force me to take other actions and pay my bill. Don't wipe your butt with it. Pay my bill. If you're going to keep mowing it, pay me for the loss that you cost me every time you mow it and write me a ticket. and I'll be at every city council meeting till somebody reaches out to talk to me. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Councilmember Ratana,
I second.
second by Councilmember Williams. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is our public hearings. Conduct a public hearing and consider adopting ordinance number 3695, amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance related to development standards for outdoor seating areas, including but not limited to amending Article 2, zoning districts and uses, Article 3, zoning district dimensional standards, and Article 4.3, parking and loading, and take appropriate action. Mrs. Fergens.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Fergens, Planning Director. This is a request to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance to allow for outdoor seating areas within the required front yard setback. The reason why we are working on or proposing this ordinance amendment before you this evening is a result of increased demand from area businesses within our community for permanent outdoor seating areas. In particularly, restaurants, breweries, brew pubs, and similar type establishments are interested in having these outdoor seating areas. Originally, we allowed for the outdoor seating areas within the required front yards in order to be able to assist many of our area businesses that were struggling as a result of the COVID-19 public health pandemic. We worked with the businesses with our CARES funding, as many on council are already aware of, with our open Farmers Branch program, which allowed for the patios to be temporary that were installed for many of our businesses. Due to the success of these outdoor patios, there's interest in allowing for these patios to be permanently allowed. And I should add, up here on this list is a listing of all the area restaurants and businesses within the community that have benefited from the Parklet program with the CARES funding that we implemented. So we worked extensively with the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the proposed ordinance amendment before the commission that's before the council this evening. With the Planning and Zoning Commission, much of the direction that we received from them was to try and make the regulations as flexible as possible in order to be able to accommodate the proposed improvements. We originally were concerned about possibly initially proposing requirements that might have been too restrictive, and the Planning and Zoning Commission felt that they were. And so hence why they recommended that we remove any provisions that limited the size and placement of the outdoor seating areas. They were also wanting to allow for the outdoor seating areas to be able to count towards landscaping requirements. In many cases, these outdoor seating areas would be located within the required front yard, which is typically where required landscape plantings need to occur. So in order to try and reduce any conflict that we had between our landscaping regulations and the outdoor seating areas, we just went ahead and allowed for the outdoor seating areas to be part of the landscape requirements. Also, the commission wanted to make sure that establishments could have improvements such as misters, lawn activities, outdoor games, things of that nature, similar type improvements in addition to the list that we had already included that would be typically found within the outdoor seating areas. So we made sure we included that. And then also they were concerned regarding the maintenance associated with these outdoor seating areas. I should note that as part of the discussion with the commission, one commissioner did express concern regarding the need for some sort of perimeter barrier being installed around the outdoor seating areas. They expressed concern regarding particularly those seating areas that are located near roadways or within parking lots, just a concern regarding the potential for a vehicle, if a vehicle were to potentially drive into the outdoor seating area. So before you, with the ordinance that's in your packet, it allows for the regulations that are proposed address outdoor seating areas that are specifically located within that front yard setback area, and I should say the required front yard setback area. When we talk about that required front yard setback area, that's the distance between the front property line and then the minimum setback line. So for example, if you're in a zoning district that has a 25-foot front yard setback, that's that initial 25 feet of your property. So that's what we mean by the required front yard area. Anything beyond that 25-foot setback, then the outdoor seating areas would be allowed in accordance with whatever zoning regulations that are in place for that particular zoning district. We're proposing to allow for outdoor seating areas for the uses that are listed above, the restaurants, breweries, brew pubs, bars or taverns, and distilleries. Those are uses that are currently allowed within our zoning ordinance and are types of businesses that we would anticipate that would want to take advantage of having the outdoor seating areas, particularly as what we're seeing over on our east side as we continue to have additional restaurants that locate over on our east side. The proposed development standards that we have included within the ordinance allow for the outdoor seating areas to be covered. The height of the outdoor seating area shall not exceed the height of the building that's adjacent to it, or the maximum allowed by the zoning district, whichever is the least restrictive, or excuse me, whichever would be the most restrictive on that height. They are allowed to be enclosed by a perimeter fence or wall. The ordinance does not require any specific perimeter barrier requirements, as expressed concern by the one commissioner. And part of the reason for that is as a result of concerns the commission had with making the existing outdoor seating areas becoming non-conforming. We allow for the outdoor seating areas to be partially enclosed or fully enclosed. Any materials that are used would be in accordance with the International Building Code. We allow for a variety of improvements that would typically be found within these outdoor seating areas. To give examples, to be able to assist with our property compliance if it came to that. One of the things that we do include within the proposed ordinance is to ensure that any of these outdoor seating areas are not located within any of our utility easements. Also making sure that they're not obstructing visibility within the site triangle at intersections or where you have driveway approaches that are adjacent to streets. Additionally, we're having to propose some additional tweaks to the comprehensive zoning ordinance. One is specifically allowing an exemption for the outdoor seating areas within the 2 local retail zoning districts, local retail 1 and 2, as well as our commercial zoning district, light industrial and heavy industrial. As you've heard me probably mention before, we do not have any commercial or heavy industrial zoning districts, but nonetheless, we still have to make sure we take care of any amendments in the event that we were to have property zoned to either of those districts. As we worked on this, we realized that we had a conflict within the comprehensive zoning ordinance. We thought we captured everything last October when we amended the comprehensive zoning ordinance. We still had a requirement in the comprehensive zoning ordinance that if you had an outdoor seating area that was equal to 50% of the total floor area of the enclosed portion, then the parking requirements would apply towards your outdoor seating area. When we specifically made an amendment elsewhere to exclude that. So we're doing an ordinance cleanup provision there, as well as then we're also addressing the fact that if we do have any bars or taverns or private clubs, breweries or brew pubs and distilleries, that their outdoor seating areas would be exempt from parking requirements. So it's consistent with what we had established for restaurants. And of course, while we were working on this, it was brought to our attention with the changes in the state legislation with respect to alcoholic beverages and for establishments that are have a mixed beverage permit from the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission for the service of alcohol or for the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumption, that our ordinance was in conflict with the state's requirements. So 2 years ago in the previous legislative session, the state had amended the requirements with respect to the percentage allowance and increased the allowance to be up to 60% of the total gross sales receipts coming from the sale of alcoholic beverages. Our ordinance still had a limitation of 50%. Additionally, in this most recent legislative session, they also allowed for alcohol to go with food service, which our comprehensive zoning ordinance prohibited. And so we are proposing to make 2 adjustments to the comprehensive zoning ordinance so that our requirements are more consistent with state law. And so the ordinance is being amended so that it allows for a minimum of 40% of the total gross sales receipts coming from the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages. So that means that allows for an establishment to have up to 60% of their total gross sales receipts for alcoholic beverage sales. And then also we are including a reference that allows for the basically the alcohol to go if an establishment has the appropriate licensing from TABC to accommodate for that. This helps the businesses, so that way they have consistent requirements to adhere to, both from the state level, but also our local ordinance requirement, because we do have, from time to time, the ability to be more restrictive, which does create some challenges for our businesses. So again, with the Planning and Zoning Commission support, they were favorable to those changes as well to the ordinance to be able to address, or to be able to assist our businesses. The Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this request on July 12th. They did recommend approval by a vote of 6-1 for this request. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Ms. Fergens, thank you very much for your presentation. I will note that this kind of all started during the pandemic. We were looking for a way to help out a lot of our restaurants, and we were lucky enough that we as a council, especially the task force that was working on how are we going to deploy our kind of recovery funds, this was one of the things that came from that and something that we pushed for. And through partnerships with both of our chambers, we were able to find some solutions and bring in restaurants that really wanted this. Most notably, I think of Nuevo Leon, I think of Coquitas, I think of Spicy Zest, I think of Native Coffee, and a few others. And a lot of them, the feedback we got was it made the difference. It got them through that tough time. And what you see, basically across America is a lot more people want to be outside. They want to eat and have a drink out there, especially when we have a few nice days in Texas. It's not as often as we would like, but it does happen. But seeing that trend, I think that we need to make this kind of permanent. I'm glad that P&Z felt the same way from a majority vote, and I kind of feel that way too. Just seeing how many more people are eating at some of these restaurants, I think it's a trend that we need to carry forward and allow restaurants to operate this way because it makes them more competitive with the rest of the Metroplex. So I'm definitely in support. I thank you for your presentation and work on this because I know you did a lot of the upfront legwork, so truly appreciative. But we'll go around. Councilmember Rotana, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'm also in full support of this. As you mentioned, so I think this is the word of COVID, but we've had to pivot to make sure that we did what we needed to do to make sure that our businesses are successful. And I agree with a lot of the new business coming on. They're looking for innovative ways to bring entertainment and those types of things into outdoor spaces. So I'm fully supportive, and thank you, Tina and team, for all the work that you all have done over the last couple of years.
Thanks.
Thanks. Councilmember Williams.
I agree. I don't have anything to add. I totally agree with the mayor's sentiments. I think this is fantastic, and it makes us more competitive as a business community, and I think it's more attractive to future restaurants and establishments wanting to come into Farmers Branch, but wanting to include that outdoor seating area. So I think overall it's a great idea.
Councilmember Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina, I have a question regarding any of these establishments that put landscaping outside. Who is responsible to make sure that that landscaping is in good condition, well-kept condition?
Well, normally it falls back on the property owner as
Well,
the
excuse
ultimate
me.
responsibility.
Let me rephrase. From a code enforcement standpoint, is that going to fall on code enforcement as one more thing to take a look at, or does that go to restaurant inspection, or?
Well, typically when it is required, when it is improvements that are related to the property, usually code enforcement has the responsibility associated with property compliance and property maintenance.
So as we go through this exercise to update our codes, will that be included? I don't know if that's a Chapter 56 item or if that's in another chapter of code. I just want to make sure that that is addressed somehow.
Well, we have general property maintenance code requirements that are typically enforced, but if there's something specific, I was looking for Leo to see if he might.
He just walked in.
Okay.
Commercial landscaping is currently covered under our existing code, and so
Right.
if there's issues with commercial landscaping, which this would fall under, then that would be, if there's a complaint, we would send code enforcement out to take care of it.
Correct.
Councilmember Merritt.
I'll echo the gratitude for the work put into this. And just for follow up on the conversation we had upstairs, could you just make sure that you elaborate, as I wrote on the question, please explain the expected review and approval process as we talk through this, just so that people understand that there is a mechanism on how this will work. Thank you.
Sure thing. So Councilman Merritt and I had the opportunity to visit just regarding the implementation aspect associated with this. If a business wanted the ability to be able to install an outdoor seating area, there will be a site plan required associated with this. What we did for the restaurants that currently have the patios through the CARES program is we basically did an administrative site plan review. They were able to submit a drawing to us that illustrated where they were proposing to locate the outdoor patio areas. Of course, depending upon the nature of the improvements, they may be required to get a building permit, and so additional drawings and information may be required as part of that permitting process, but we will coordinate with them on that. Is this on? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Tina. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone else have any more questions for Mrs. Fergens at this time? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. We do not have anyone signed up to speak, so with that, look for a motion to close the public hearing and take action.
Mayor, I make a motion to close public hearing and adopt ordinance number 3695.
I have a motion by Councilmember Williams, second by Councilmember Lynn. Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is J2, conduct a public hearing and consider approving resolution number 2021-093, nominating Copart, Inc. to the Office of the Governor, Economic Development and Tourism through the Economic Development Bank as an enterprise project and take appropriate action. Ms. Cook.
Yes, good afternoon. Tonight, we're really just making the nomination for the resolution for the Texas Enterprise Zone Program for the Copart. And so I just want to let y'all know more about the Enterprise Zone Program. It is a state incentive, not a local incentive, so it does not require city dollars, but it is state dollars to Copart, and they need a local nomination. So here's some information on the Enterprise Zone Program. A sales and use tax rebate for capital improvement that is put back into the business. They own a building at Spring Valley Road in the Tollway, and so they're going to put roughly $6.2 million of capital investment back into their site. They are an online vehicle auction, so if you're not familiar with Copart, here are some of the cars, just in case you need to go make some bids. These are some of their salvage cars, and they have 409 employees here in Farmers Branch, but they are all over the world, and it's a membership-based online auction provider. They work with insurance companies, clearly. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. They have a representative here tonight with their tax consultant.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Cook at this time or for anyone from Copart? Okay. Well, this is a public hearing. Again, I don't have anyone signed up to speak to this item, so with that, Councilmember Lynn, this is in your district. So.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing and approve Resolution 3021-093.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lynn, second by Councilmember Rotana. Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is our regular agenda items. K1, consider adopting ordinance number 3696, amending in its entirety Chapter 56, Property Maintenance of the Code of Ordinances relating to the regulation of the condition and maintenance of real property within the city, repealing Articles 10, 11, and 12 of the Chapter 22, and Articles 4 and 6 of Chapter 34, and Sections 22-265 and 62-28, 66-37C, and 66-38 of the Code of Ordinances and take appropriate action. Mr. Bonanno.
Good afternoon, council members. Leo Bonanno, Code Enforcement Manager. I'm here for you today to give you a brief presentation. This is the last time I will most likely be appearing before you about this matter. I've got a very brief presentation just to summarize everything we've done. And then, as usual, I'm here for questions if you have any. Just again, a quick recap of how this has come to be. Earlier this year, Mayor Dye created the Code Enforcement Task Force, which was composed of a group of citizens chosen by council members here and also some previous members. Together, we worked on the code, the Property Maintenance Code, Chapter 56, looking for ways to improve and update the code in a number of ways, redundancies and conflicts, and also just examining codes in general to make sure they still aligned with how the community felt overall. You received a number of presentations from me that contained not only the task force's recommendations, but some of my own. And now today we're here to hopefully approve the final version that you've all been provided with, unless you have more questions for me today. One reminder is that the purpose of this entire process was to do things like increase clarity, increase comprehension. Fairness was another thing that we discussed a lot while we were together, moving common topics throughout the codes into one place, and just generally making this easier for everyone to read and understand. And when I say everyone, I mean the staff, the public, new residents, old residents. What we started with was a rough piece of law, and what we've ended with now, I think, is something that's really great. And thanks so much for the Code Enforcement Task Force for making it happen. The final thing I'd like to mention this afternoon is, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the city is about to implement a new 311 citizen engagement system. called FBTX Connect. And I'm actually fortunate, my previous city used a system similar to this, and I have been lucky enough to test what we're about to go to, and I have to tell you, it's great. It's really going to be great. This is a new way for staff, not just my own, but for staff throughout the city, to interact with citizens and for staff to interact with each other so that we can get more done faster, more efficiently, and this will, I believe, start off in my office primarily, but with the ultimate goal of spreading to other divisions throughout the city. But based on my previous experience with systems like this, they're a great way to interact with the community, and the one that our city and I believe our IT director, Mark Samuels, has chosen is really, really superb. So in code enforcement, we're looking forward to its implementation. So we have some good things lining up time-wise with our new ordinance and this new system. So just wanted to mention that is on its way. And that's all I have for you today. So if I can help with any questions, happy to do that.
Mr. Bonanno, thank you very much. I'm going to start on my right this time. Councilmember Merritt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bonanno. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this effort for this particular point. As I get my notes here, I caught myself off guard. Thank you, Mayor. I want to, again, talk about the enhancements and the improvements. You talked about the focus of what this particular effort was. I want to appreciate the priorities list that was injected of the code enforcement violation priorities. I think that's a good document that will help navigate going forward. I also would be a little remiss that I'd like to have seen a little bit more about the education aspect, and maybe that's a next step that your office was proposing, that there would be some more education material that would help discern this, and maybe we can, through city administration, talk about how that will go forward and look for that. I want to tell the residents that I've heard numerous concerns and questions and observations from the citizens. I've personally engaged a number of citizens to review the same materials that City Council had been made public on Thursday of this past week. And I've received individual assessments and subsequent comments. I want to make sure that everyone here knows that I'm for thorough, consistent, enforceable, reasonable, and understandable code enforcement. I think we need to look at this as a holistic approach. This initiative was started with the entire City Council with their participation of selecting their participants. I think the objective stated earlier in your presentation was to make sure that the code was understandable, fair, enforceable, and could be worked on. I think we're at that point to where there may be a few points that people have very poignant and very pointed opinions about, but I think overall it's an improvement from where we are and where we were, from where we were. So I'm interested to hear the comments tonight, but that's where I'll stop right there, and I'll pass it on back to the mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor. Are we going to be coming back through after people speak?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, Leo, as I read through this, I had a few questions. I didn't have 40 plus like I had the last time, but I do have some questions.
Okay.
And so I'm going to sort of walk through this, if you will. On page 11, with respect to the standard for concrete and the PSI rating.
Yes.
Okay. Is that covered elsewhere? So it's being removed from this particular paragraph?
No, it's not. That's actually in the current Chapter 56. I didn't touch it, so that exists already.
Okay, because it said current, but when I read the proposed, it looked like it didn't have a stated minimum standard. So that's what caused me a little confusion.
Sure. Let me see if I can help. The current code, as it stands today, does go into those specs that you just quoted. So I did not remove those. Those were just carried over. I didn't change them at all.
Okay, that that page was a little questionable. Okay, so I'm going to move on, and forgive me, I ran out of my sticky notes, so let me find my next page. On page 39, and this is something that we talked about previously, and I guess it goes hand in hand with what's on page 43 with respect to overgrown vegetation. So I see you have in here 8 inches with respect to tall grass and weeds, and I appreciate that. But on page 43, or excuse me, page 40, rather, let me correct myself. Page 40, we had an ordinance on the books for stumps and how to deal with them. That ordinance has been in place for quite some time. It required them to be cut at ground level and then ground. I'm going to talk more about that when we come back through, but I'm not on board with allowing stumps of 6 inches to be in the city. So I'm just going on record now and saying that. Page 43, though, with respect to vegetation, this concerns with easements, utility easements. And my question is, how do you enforce these easements when you can't see them? You can only see from the street, or if you're, let's just say you're on Josie Lane, and you're looking down between 2 rows of homes. Well, you might be able to see the first home on each side and the second home on each side, but what about further down? Okay, this is a problem with many easements that are overgrown, and at my town hall I showed examples of tall grass and weeds that were 4.5 to 5 feet or more tall. And so how do we enforce that?
You are correct in that my office currently is only allowed to address things that we can see from the public right-of-way. So if you imagine, like you said, we're looking down an unimproved alley and we have houses on either side. Just as you said, you can see the first couple of houses, and now all of a sudden you've gotten too deep into the alley, you're not sure which grass belongs to which house. You kind of hit that mystery spot in the middle of the block, right? So that's where things get a little tricky. They do. If we cannot confirm with some level of certainty where the violation is, we can't write up someone for it. We can't just send notices blindly, hoping we hit the house that we're aiming for, you know. So we can't do that. So what we would do is we could start on one end, work our way in, and get as far as we can. And then we have other tools at our disposal, like one we used recently, I believe, in Councilwoman Williams' district. We blanketed that block, that double row of homes with courtesy letters, just educating people. You may not know this, but you have to maintain your easements. We're going to be back to check. Well, a lot of folks just took that, and that's nothing official, that's nothing legal. It's just an educational measure, and they mowed their easements on their own. So education does help with this as well. Worst case scenario, if we are unable to press on with some kind of enforcement action, a neighbor or someone else who does have visibility of the violation can do it themselves. So we do get complaints from time to time that, you know, I mow my side of the easement, but my neighbor doesn't mow their side. Well, if a code officer can't see that from the road, what we'll advise, if we try everything we can, is if you'd like to file a formal complaint with the court, a citizen's allowed to do that. They are allowed to cite an ordinance, sign an affidavit, and file it with the court. And if probable cause is found, that person is brought in as if one of us had done it. The difference here is they can see the violation and we can't.
So basically, citizens are going to have to become code officers.
In a sense, they have to step in where we have to stop.
So I fully support the education aspect of all this. And I think to many, they just forget or they may not have a back gate, but they need to know that they're still responsible for those areas. And that's going to be a continuing problem, I believe. I hope not, but so we'll wait and see what the program does to try to address some of this. But even the new mobile system won't be of benefit with respect to that.
No, it won't.
Okay, so I want to make sure. Okay. The other thing relates to that same topic, where it said high grass and weeds that have grown higher than 48 inches and are in immediate danger to health, life, or safety. I'm not sure that "and" should be in there. Somebody could have 48-inch grass and it's not a danger to public safety. It does provide a breeding ground for rodents and other things, snakes and whatnot. But if you're looking at public safety versus aesthetics, this is more on the aesthetic side versus the public safety side, I believe.
I think you've got an argument for both, honestly. I have used this language in the past, and I have seen grass that was over 48 inches that was housing homeless camps, that was hiding vehicles. So it can definitely be a health and safety issue for sure.
Okay.
It's not something common. This tends to be 48 inches tall. You tend to see on vacant lots and vacant abandoned properties. That's where you tend to see it the most. But I would say it can definitely be a safety issue for sure. And if you feel more comfortable with the or removing that dangerous language altogether, I would not stand in the way of that. I can totally see your argument for that.
Okay, well, others may feel differently about that, but
That language, just so you know, that language did come right from the state. It comes from Chapter 342 of the Health and Safety Code. That's where dangerous weeds comes from. So that was literally copied and pasted in at the state level. So as long as our attorneys are okay with any change, I wouldn't object to anything either.
Okay, well, I'm not one to sit and second guess the state. So, okay, moving forward, page 57. Which has to deal with vehicles. And it says, no vehicle may be used for housekeeping, living, sleeping quarters, or for the storage of trash, debris, or personal property not normally associated with the vehicle. That's being deleted.
Yes.
What is our mechanism to address people living in vehicles?
I would address it as a zoning violation. You have a CO to conduct a certain use on a property. For example, a single-family home, you are CO'd for that, a certificate of occupancy. You are not CO'd to live in a vehicle on that property. This is not, as some have put it, this is not a trailer park site. They have COs of their own in other cities. So there's nothing in your CO at your home that gives you the right to allow someone to live in a vehicle on your property. So that's how I would handle it through the zoning language if it is removed from here.
Okay, so John Doe residence calls code enforcement, says somebody's living in a boat, camper, RV, or vehicle, because they're all considered vehicles, and they call your department. What are they going to hear?
They're going to hear that we can do an investigation and collect as much information as we can. The officer or I will step in and make some kind of determination.
So it'll still be your department?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we enforce zoning as well. So,
okay,
yeah.
Just wanted to make sure of that. Okay. Then on page 66, with respect to minimum property standards, and we talk about sidewalks, walkways, pathways, driveways, and the like, and talks about cracks, buckling, holes, etc. Again, small cracks in driveways are, I think, a way of life for most residents.
Agreed.
But what is the standard that is used when cracks get so big that you have grass growing up through, or you have uneven levels of pavement on private property. And is that something you all will enforce?
The latter, yes. Depending on the shifting of the concrete over time, you've got a hazard, which is now defined, a hazardous situation, a tripping hazard, or even a hazard to someone's vehicle if it's a big enough shift. So yes, we would deal with that and ask and then instruct someone to repair it. With respect to grass through cracks, that one's a little bit tricky. Is a crack in a driveway a defect? Yes, it is. No matter how small it is. Is it defective to have grass growing up where it should not be? Yes, it is. But I guess from my point of view, is that the biggest fish you have to fry on this street? You know, is that the biggest thing? You know, perhaps we should focus on, kind of like in my previous presentation, let's focus less on lawn furniture and more on broken things. I tend to look at those things in that way, is when I've perfected this street, I'll take a look at the grass growing through a crack in a driveway. That's probably not a safety hazard. It might not look pleasant, but it's easy enough to get rid of. Roundup could fix that in a second. So I would say on my list of priorities there, that would be very, very low.
Okay, just want everybody to know so everybody's on the same page. Then on page 68, we talked about lighting, and all exterior lighting should be maintained, operable, good condition, whatnot. Light poles and posts shall not lean or display show any signs of deterioration. So this comment is more for the city, that we need to set the example on that and take care of city assets also, because that same should hold true for city light poles and whatnot. And I know we do a pretty good job of trying to stay on top of that, but there are some places where they need attention. And I think lastly, with respect on page 71 to interior or exterior window coverings that are visible from the street, that shows that paragraph is being deleted. But my concern is we can address shutters on the outside of the house that have peeling paint, let's say, or that are in disrepair. But what about those homes that have, say, vertical blinds, and we've all seen them where they're all just a mismatch of stuff. They're on the inside,
right,
but they're visible to the outside.
Right.
Is that an enforceable item?
Not under the new code. It is under the current code, but not the new code.
Okay.
The Code Enforcement Task Force was adamant about removing that one. They felt that it was overreach. I remember hearing the word overreach to go into someone's home in that manner and start to dictate window coverings. So that's why that was taken out.
Okay. Mayor, that's all I have. I'd like to save the rest of my comments for when we come back around.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Williams.
Thank you so much, Leo. I know that your whole team and the task force, which I was lucky enough to be a part of, we did a huge amount of work, and your team especially did a huge amount of work. We fortunately just got to spend some time with you, and really, you just did a really great job of educating us and guiding us through that whole process. I don't have anything to add. I think we have talked this thing through thoroughly, and I think everyone got to have their say and got to contribute. And I think we came to a great, cleaned up, easy to read, easily enforceable. I think it is a much more equitable situation for our city and for our community. I think that the addition of the FBTX connection.
FBTX, Connect.
Yeah, Connect. I think that's fantastic. I think that's really going to be great. And I think that gives a really clear way for people to make that reporting. And like we had talked about before, making sure that you had a way to connect back with that person and follow back up with it. I think, these two things falling together like they did, I think that's fantastic. And I think that's going to help everyone. I think that we may have about a month or two of some growing pains, but and I'm hoping that you don't get flooded too much with I can't remember if I actually submitted that picture or not, so I'll just submit it again. And maybe my cell phone didn't work well, so I'm going to submit it 20 times more. I hope that doesn't end up being the case, but I'm sure that you guys will work through all of that and figure all of that out. And so I don't have anything more to add to this. And so I think you guys have done a great job, and I appreciate your hard work on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Rotana.
Thank you, Mayor. Leo, we've been spending a lot of time with you lately, and I just want to thank you for all of your time, and especially with your team and the task force, as Tracy mentioned. One of the first things that I still remember, one of my first meetings with City Council staff was with John and Mark talking about this app that I know City of Dallas had it and I wanted us to have it, and they told me to be patient. So I'm very, to say the least, very excited that we finally have it here, especially with the GIS capabilities. So John, thank you. I'm very excited. As far as the ordinance itself, I agree, with Tracy. We've talked a lot about it, so I won't belabor us with any questions on that since we've had the opportunity to do so. But I did have one clarifying question, or two rather, on Article 8, when it talked about the fencing. It says that it's removing the 10-degree lean limitation, and any degree is now prohibited. But my understanding is it's still at the discretion of the code officer as it relates to a quality of life issue. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, ma'am, would you give me the section you're looking at?
It's Article 8 under fences. I'm looking at the overview of the changes, not necessarily at the exact,
Okay.
article, but it said that the specific 10-degree lean limitation on fences has been removed, and any degree of lean is now prohibited.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that becomes a discretionary thing now.
Perfect,
So
okay.
10 degrees, 20 degrees, 5 degrees, if it's not safe, we're going to deal with it.
Perfect, okay. Just point of clarification for that. And another thing, since we had our last meeting, a couple of folks have asked me about a particular apartment property related to some potential issues inside the dwellings. And just for the record, can you talk a little bit about how this relates to, there's a provision in here talking about the inside of a dwelling has to be kept to where pests wouldn't be able to accumulate there. And so can you talk a little bit about that as it relates to the code, just what we currently have related to that and what we would do as code enforcement, especially in our apartment communities?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sure. Under the new article for minimum property standards, that section deals with exterior and interior of all properties in the city. So with respect to interior properties, that has actually been fleshed out quite a bit from what it used to be. We get very into the weeds a bit with everything needs to be safe, everything needs to be functional. The current code, as is in place now, does not really do that. I think a lot of it is implied, but it's not flat out said, and that can run into trouble when someone like me is explaining the law to a jury or a judge. Well, here's what the law means, but it doesn't say that. So now it says it, and it comes across, in my opinion, very clear. So really, anything on the interior of any structure, including an apartment unit, is kind of fair game. If a code officer spots something that isn't right, it can be addressed. Now, with respect to apartment complexes specifically, not only will we go into an apartment unit whenever that resident needs us, maybe files a complaint, gives us permission to enter the property and take a look at the problem, we will go in and do that anytime. In fact, I have an officer dedicated to do that, a Spanish-speaking officer named Mario Sanchez, who's doing a great job. In addition to responding to complaints, we visit every apartment complex at least once a year as part of our multifamily licensing program. So every apartment complex in the city is required to get inspected by our office in order to maintain a license. And we have had some issues where property managers or apartment owners have not complied with making repairs, and we have had several in court this year. So we do take it very seriously. My office does believe in protecting these folks that put their trust in landlords and property managers. And when they're let down, we'll be there to help them through it. So does that help answer
It
your
does,
question?
it does. I just
Okay.
promised that I would ask the question to you, so that way
Okay.
we had it on the record.
Good
But-
question.
But the reason is because, I think that some of the mechanisms that we're putting in place, I think are going to give us, be able to support us in being able to ensure the quality of life of our residents. So again, just want to thank you for that, because I think strengthening that was very, very important. One of the things I wanted to make sure that we did here. And then the other thing I had is more of a comment, and I agree with David, with Councilmember Merrill, with David, that we need to be able to educate. And so I saw the little tidbits of the communications reminders in some of our publications, but I would love to see a separate, very specific publication. Maybe it's in conjunction with our newsletter, to talk about some of the big highlights, like the fencing and the grass and maybe the backyard grass, to your point, Councilmember Lynn, because I think it's not that people won't want to mitigate those. I think it's just that they forget. And if we can do separate type of publication to just talk about some of those big reminders, I think that would definitely go a long way, in English and Spanish. And anyhow, and then the last thing is just look forward to the next step of this, which is our repair program that I know I keep talking about, but I'm really excited to delve into this with you. So thank you so much for your work, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We're going to let some citizens talk now.
Okay.
All right. First up is Jake Geigel. Just name and address, please.
Sure. Jake Geigel, 2905 Bergen Lane. I appreciate y'all's time tonight, and for the committee that came forth and the task force. I think my main concern with this is going to be that it seems like we're going much more lax in code and having things taken away, sections deleted. I live on the kind of the west side of Farmers Branch, center of it, where we're small houses. We're not Brookhaven. We're not, Oak Brook Estates. We're the areas where we have issues that y'all are talking about, where we're not having recycling bins fenced. We're not having our yards mowed. We're not having easements mowed. And so the things that code enforcement looks at as small issues are big issues in our area that are mounting up to frequently having issues. And when we do report them, they're either pushed aside or barely addressed, and they're coming up over and over and over. So that's my main concerns, as well as, just I think the shift, I think it sends the wrong message. I think that we go into the broken window system of things, where we're starting to see things that are going to add up to more and more. And while I understand code enforcement wants to have big wins, I think that we need to look at the small things, because if we don't start there, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. So I also would just add, I don't like the format of the having to sign up and having to not hear from all the citizens that we want to hear from. I'd recommend a town hall be had on this topic, because I think that if y'all truly want to hear from the citizens, you'd hear from them as many as you want to, and allow them to speak for as long as you want to. So thank y'all.
Thank you. Next is Chris Geigel.
Chris Geigel, 3426 Lake Country Court. First, I had a question. Who decides who speaks at the meetings?
Who decides who speaks? I mean, you sign up, so you do.
Well, isn't there a limit, though?
That's only at citizen comments. If it's a regular agenda item, we could be here for 5 hours.
Okay. Have we always had it where you have to say which side you're on a topic?
Sir, your comments need to be directed towards this item. If you want to talk to me offline about procedures, I can meet with you after this meeting and we can discuss that then.
So you don't want to answer?
I will. I've answered it previously. I don't need to answer it tonight, though.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Certainly. I guess
Clock's running.
What's that?
The clock's running.
Oh, okay. I don't care for the bins that now don't have to be screened on the side. When you guys pushed this through, and you in particular, Mr. Mayor, that was one of the ways you sold it, is that they wouldn't be visible, it wouldn't be high pollution. And so as you, of course, have now done, you're trying to roll that back. And so I just want you to know we remember that. And it's the bait and switch. I think on the tree stump things, what's 6 inches, where do you measure from? It becomes subjective, it's not objective. And you're just adding, what you're trying to do is keep it from being confusing where it's objective, and you're taking that away. I think the changes are making the city more problematic. I think we're going to become Dallas, and we're the city in the park, and people want to live here, and I don't see how we're improving anything. I think when you say things can be taller, there can be more eye pollution, I just fundamentally disagree with that. I think the sign-up process is problematic being online because they're elderly that have a problem with that. I talk to my neighbors, they don't know how to sign up online. I don't think that's fair. And I think, you know, when you started the meeting, what it says is that you're trying to serve the people and to help us, and I don't feel it. I don't think that's happening, and I think by you not being willing to answer my question, I think that's emblematic.
Oh, sorry I had a hard time speaking here tonight. Next up is Bill Phelps.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Councilman. I'm Bill Phelps. I live at 3135 Rolling Knoll Court. I bought that house in 1967. I never dreamed I'd be here that long, but here I am. But I want to start off with, I want to thank you all for going for the 8 inches rather than the 12 inches on the grass. I think that was a good move. The house that's next door to me, and I'm on the number 4 of the Masters Golf Course at Brookhaven, and the house next to me is 3139, and it's on 2 holes, on number 4 and then back on number 5. And you don't measure that grass and weeds out in that backyard that you can't see from the front. You measure it in feet. That grass is between 3 and 4 feet high, but you can't see it from the street. And I think we need to take some action on that. And then on the subject of RVs and boats in the front yard or on the driveways or anything that you can, if you don't have it hidden in the backyard, unless it's on the backyard being on the golf course, I think they've got to go. And then one last item, and that has to do with swimming pools and people that are backwashing in Farmers Branch. I built my swimming pool in 1982, and it's tied into the sewer. And so when I backwash, it doesn't go out on the street. But it's amazing to see all the white material from the DE, diatomaceous earth, on people. And I think this is in violation of the EPA to allow that to go into the streets and into the stormwater. I'm not an authority on that. Believe me, in my career, I've worked with the EPA, and that's something I think we ought to take attention. I don't like driving through that and getting all that material under your car. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Barry Grubbs.
I'm Barry Grubbs, 3521 Brookline Lane, Farmers Branch. I think you're going to adopt this property maintenance document tonight. I think you're on the goal line. A lot of people have worked on it, and you're going to push it over. But I think you still have a lot of heavy lifting to do to improve our city. I look around, I'm not really that concerned about grass and cracks on driveways and that sort of thing. I don't think that really lowers property values like having a 40-foot RV parked in a circular drive next door to my house. So while you've worked really hard, and the staff has also worked hard on this document, you still have a heavy lifting to do. RVs, boats, pleasure craft in residential areas lowers property values. It does not enhance the beauty of our city. And so please come back soon and address this problem. It is a growing problem. So I admonish you to do that. The second thing I would say to you is that we're seeing a lot of violations relative to converting garages to living areas. There's a very good reason that's been restricted in our city for probably 20 or 25 years. And I don't have to recite to you the problems that occur as a result of that. But it's becoming really prevalent. And code enforcement needs to start enforcing that ordinance. And that's another one that's going to impact the beauty of our city. So we need to make sure that we stay a beautiful city and a park, and that we don't become a city in an RV and boat park. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. Next is Luther Bernstein. Luther Bernstein. Next up is Todd Bonneau.
Todd Bonneau, 14339 Tanglewood Drive. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I blame Barry Grubbs for the fact that I'm a builder, because when he was on council back in the late 90s, they put this program together where the city purchased some properties, and at the time, I was in real estate but not a builder. And I just felt like, man, what a great idea. And I thought I could start my home building business that way. And 20 some odd years later, that's what we're still doing. And we're primarily building right here in Farmers Branch. So we've really enjoyed doing that. And again, the way things are today, Barry, I blame you. There's some weeks I feel better than others, but just want to say thank you. At the same time that they put the lots up for sale 20 some odd years ago, they also strengthened at the time the codes and the code enforcement. That's where it really kind of started taking off. And for the first probably 5 to 10 years that we built, many of the questions, if we were entertaining a customer looking at a property, something like that, they would question some of the other homes in the neighborhood. Well, when will that get built? Or there's a car on the yard over there, or something that they would see that would discourage them from investing in our city or something like that. And I'm really happy to say over the years that went away because of the strong code enforcement that the city has done. And it really helped clean up some of that was a little bit unsightly. And I believe as a result, many neighborhoods are being developed today, homes being remodeled, new homes being built in areas that back then we had no idea would be reaching so many different neighborhoods. And I think that's exciting and whatnot. So I'm here tonight simply to comment that, make no doubt about it, that was always a question that a potential buyer had for me. And whereas in the last 10 years, rarely did it ever come up. When I would show them a property and they're looking at the neighborhood, the existing homes, plus the new homes, the mix and whatnot, everyone was generally very pleased with what they were seeing. And again, that's because of the hard work, the vision from 20 years ago, and the continuation of enforcing the codes now. I understand, listen, I'm all for making things easier, and it sounds like the committee was put together and a lot of thought put into that, and I appreciate that, and I support it 100%. As a couple other commenters mentioned, some other items could be done. The RVs and boats is certainly something that could be very helpful. Have no problem with someone parking an RV, someone coming to visit for a week or so, but there are times beyond that it can get a little bit long. Appreciate it. Good to see all y'all.
Thank you very much. As everyone, we have signed up to speak tonight, so after that, we will go back through the next round of comments through council members. Councilmember Merritt.
Thank you again, Mayor. I want to thank everyone for commenting this evening in the open public hearing portion of tonight's. I think I said it earlier. This is one portion, and I believe Todd said it, and Mr. Grubb said it as well. There's a lot more to do here, and I want to make sure that we wrap this up, monitor the approaches that we're changing and making sure that we don't find any issues, but we need to address this as a program going forward. I view the code language as a project, but the Code Enforcement Office is a program, and it has more projects that are involved, including education, including monitoring how we're being effective. So I look forward to, as former Councilman Grubb said, some more of that heavy lifting. I know that is ahead, and I look forward to that particular challenge. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've certainly gone through all this with a fine-tooth comb, and I think back on why I was elected, why we were all elected to City Council, and that is to make a decision. Is what we were doing good for Farmers Branch? It's really that simple. Is what we are doing good for the city? How will our decisions today affect our city years from now? Will it be neater and cleaner? Will these decisions increase property value, which is something we all want? So we have code and ordinances right now that are already on the books but not being enforced. That's been happening for quite some time. In some respects, it looks like we're weakening many of the things that we have on the books. Stumps, just one example. And maybe I'm the only one that's concerned with that, but the reason I bring it up is because people have brought it to me. So, thinking further, as one of our speakers mentioned, why would we allow trash bins to be visible from the street? Shane and his department built screens, and we produced videos to show people how they could do it yourself to screen bids. We were told by former Councilman Norwood and Baumgartner, who pushed for the recycling program, that we would not have to see the bins except on pickup day. And I think any one of us can drive down any street in Farmers Branch and we'll see bins in front yards, front porches, sides of homes, all visible from the street. If we had alleys throughout the city, this would be a moot point. We wouldn't be wasting time on this, but we don't. So some of this, in my mind, I see as being counterproductive to our demo rebuild and revitalization efforts. We have people that are spending well over $1 million to build homes in this city, only to have neighbors who have high grass and weeds, RVs, boats, campers parked in front of drives, trash bins out. And, a lot of this deals with education. It's simple in my mind. It's responsible home ownership. That's what it is. It's just being good neighbors. As was referenced, we're known as City in a Park, and that's the standard that we should hold our city to and our ordinances to help enforce. Code enforcement is our insurance, in a way, to maintaining our property values. It's supposed to set a minimum acceptable standard for the entire city. And I heard, without doubt, from the many people that attended my town hall meeting a month or so ago, that they really wanted more robust code enforcement. Again, city manager tells me I'm the only one that's harping on stumps, but I will tell you, if you have a stump in your yard, we have an ordinance right now that requires stumps to be cut off at ground level and ground. Well, 6 inches is going the wrong way, in my estimation. If you want to cut it off at ground level, fine. Cut it off at ground level so we don't have to look at it. But do know what you're in for, because stumps attract termites, borers, carpenter ants, all of which will find their way to your home after they finish with the stump. And then see what that costs you to remedy. I'm very concerned about the maintenance of easements, as I said earlier, and I hope that we can find a more acceptable way, more robust way, if you will. I hate to use that word, but that will address that. This language regarding the living and sleeping in vehicles being deleted, that concerns me, because we currently have a situation going on in the city, and it's almost been unmanageable, because we don't know if it's a police function, we don't know if it's a code function, what. So I think we need some clarification in that regard. This bit about boats, campers, RVs, and trailers, that will be addressed at another time. As I stated in the report from study session, I'm working on an ordinance to bring forward at some point in time, have council discussion on that. So we're currently working on that. But regardless, my concerns aren't so much for public safety, because I think that we handle public safety very well. They're more the aesthetics. And that's what gets on people's nerves, is the aesthetics of having to look at some of this stuff that they don't find appealing or beneficial to their neighborhood. Now, I can't believe that I'm the only one sitting here that gets phone calls or emails from people throughout the city in regards to these things. But I get a lot. So I'm going to tell you, you're still welcome to email me and call me, whatever. But my hope is that with this new app the city is developing, that it will be a true benefit to citizens, and we will have to educate them how to use it. I use the Dallas app a lot to report violations of homeless encampments, and it's been very good. I report a situation, and then I hear back when the situation has been addressed. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think that'll be a big plus for us. But where we are today, I think all of this needs a little more work, a little fine-tuning. And I'll leave it at that and just wait to hear what my fellow councilwomen have to say.
Councilmember Williams?
I don't have anything to add. I just have some comments to make. I know as a task force member, and I know after the multiple meetings that we've had regarding this code enforcement revision, it was never anyone's intention, and nor do I think if you read the ordinance as it's written now, are we laxing on our code? In fact, we're trying to clarify it in that way. Like with grass, we had it in one place, it said you could have it at 8 inches, but in another place you had it at 12. So we're just clarifying. RVs and boats, as Terry mentioned, will address that because it's not part of the code already. And this was to address the duplications, the revisions, and the cleanup that needed to occur. And I think that's what was achieved. As far as the stumps, I'll make a comment on that because I know that was a big issue that we all talked about within the task force as well. Right now, you have a code that can't be enforced because as the code is written, the only way that you are required to remove that stump to ground level and grind it is if the tree is removed due to disease, not if you just decided you wanted to remove it. And it didn't address anything about the stumps beforehand. So what we tried to do is take an approach that made it affordable for someone to remove those stumps themselves, because grinding a stump down to ground level is $500 on average. And some people may not have that. So that's how we address that. I hope that everyone will take the time to go through the actual revisions that were made. I think they're good, and I think that there was a lot of hard work that was put forth. I think there's a lot of clarification in it. Just like with the homeless, he clarified for you. He told you the zoning is going to address that. It just didn't need to be in with our maintenance, with our property maintenance. It's not that we're now saying that we're going to allow for homeless people or for people to live in their vehicles. It's that it's addressed somewhere else. So I think we need to be careful about the language that we're using and continuing to state things that just aren't part of the code. So I think the as it's written, it achieved what our goals were, which was to clean it up, eliminate the duplicates, make it easier to read, make it user-friendly. I think it's more stringent, yeah, I think it should be passed as it is. So.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rotana.
Thank you. I too don't have anything to add, but more just a few comments. You know, the way I see this is more of a sunset review of sorts, something that we definitely needed to do, to your point, Councilmember Williams, to clarify a lot of the language. And I think that the path we're moving forward to ensure that we do these type of sunset reviews for all of our code, you know, every, 5 to 10 years based on what we think is best is very important. And I'm glad that we are taking the direction at this council to do that. That doesn't mean that we can't change a code because maybe we, sometimes we do make mistakes. I truly believe that nobody is perfect. Just today, we had a change to a planning and zoning code that we had just did a sunset overhaul just a year ago. But at the same time, I will say for me, first and foremost, it's the quality of life and the safety of our residents. That's first and foremost one of the things that I truly believe is important. But I also do believe that we are a city in a park, and we should make sure that we protect that brand that we've built for ourselves. I've lived here all my life. Over the last 30 years, a lot of things have changed. But over the last 10, 15 years, there's been an influx of a lot of really great people coming into our city. But again, they're coming from other cities where things are a little different. And so I think the education piece is going to be very, very crucial. And we need to think outside the box when it comes to those things. I'm having conversations with Leo and some real estate agents on how we can create a, welcome package to our new folks to show them about these different things that make us different in in a way. And so I think together we can really look towards creating a really great communications plan, and it'll be a big first step for us. But I do want to encourage you all to continue to contact us, especially if I'm your representative, because I do want to hear from you, and I have heard from a number of folks on both sides. And so we are here to listen to all and to do what we think is best for our city. And I think all in all, we have done a really great job. And again, just thank Leo for all of the work that you all have done. And it'll be a continued conversation, and look forward to the continued conversations in the future. So thank you, Mayor.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Does anyone else have any final comments? Allow everyone one more shot. No. Councilmember Lynn?
Again, I'm going to take an issue because this is something that's important to me. We have an ordinance on the books right now that requires stumps to be ground at ground level, cut flush with the ground. It also states that they need to be ground, okay? Allowing stumps to be 6 inches high, in my mind, is weakening the ordinance. If you're going to do anything, change it so they're cut they're cut at ground level, and let it be done at that. And if people don't want to grind them, that's up to them. But to go from a ground level stump to now allowing 6-inch stumps, I mean, we're going to be the council of Stumptown here. And I just don't see how that adds value. Ask any real estate professional if stumps in front yards add value to properties. In my mind, it's that simple. We've got real estate agents sitting here in the audience. So as it stands, you know, if you're going to move forward with this document the way it's written today, then I have to oppose, because I do feel as though there are several things that were weakened in it.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments to Mr. Lynn's comments? All right, seeing none, this item is marked for action.
I move to approve ordinance number 3696 as presented.
I have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Second by Councilmember Ratana. Is there any more discussion? Do a roll call vote. Councilmember Ratana. Aye. Councilmember Williams. Aye. Councilmember Lynn.
No.
Councilmember Merritt.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1. Next is K2, consider a board and commission appointment, Arts and Culture Committee, and take appropriate action. We discussed this upstairs, so to expedite this, I will make a motion to appoint Gail Cope to place 6 with an expiring term of June 30, 2022, Amy Cave to alternate 1 with an expiring term of June 30, 2023, and Robert Barsmanian to alternate 2 with an expiring term of June 30, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Williams. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is take any action necessary as a result of the closed executive session. Councilmember Williams.
I move that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and sign contracts and such other documents that are reasonable and necessary to sell to the Farmers Branch Local Government Corporation for the purpose of resale to Ashcock and Padmavarty, Bekti, and or assign the property described as Lot 11 in Block B of Valley View Estates Number 3, known as 3001 Primrose Lane, for a purchase and sales price of not less than $225,000. The resale of said property to be subject to a restriction agreement requiring construction of a single-family residence of no less than 3,000 square feet of air-conditioned space, with an assessed value of the property upon completion of construction, inclusive of both land and improvements, to be not less than $750,000.
I will second that. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next
Ready
item.
for the next? Mayor, I move that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and sign contracts and other such documents that are reasonable and necessary to sell to the Farmers Branch Local Government Corporation for the purpose of resale to Todd Bonneau Homes and/or assigns the property described as Lot 10 and Block 1 of Valley View Estates Number 2, known as 2981 Primrose, for a purchase and sales price of not less than $185,000, with the resale of said property to be subject to a restriction agreement requiring construction of a single-family residence of not less than 3,000 square feet of air-conditioned space with an assessed value of the property upon completion of construction, inclusive of both land and improvements, to be no less than $750,000.
I will second that as well. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Councilmember Rotano.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an economic development agreement and any amendments thereto on behalf of the city of Farmers Branch for Project Titan to provide the following economic development incentives. 1, an annual grant equal to a rebate of 100% of the incremental increase in the real property and personal property taxes for 5 years above the base tax year 2022 taxes. 2, a facade grant of $50,000 for each of 2 buildings on subject property. And 3, annual grant equal to a rebate of 100% of the city 1% sales tax for purchase and use of construction materials, taxable items for the subject property associated with company's direct payment permit for the time period of 2022 through 2026, subject to the standard terms and conditions, and provided the company continuously owns and operates its business through December 31st, 2031.
I second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Seeing no more business to conduct, I will adjourn tonight's meeting at 7:46. Everyone have a good night.